The day I left my hometown smelled like dropped leaves on a clear autumn morning. As I drove to start over far from the terrible memories, I loaded everything I valued into my old pickup truck. Though it was difficult, leaving was essential. Betrayal and dishonesty had destroyed my life. The only way I could recover was to cut off myself from those who had harmed me. After hours of driving, I reached a peaceful village, ideal for a fresh start. Pleasant. I came into a little rundown garage and gas station on the market for years. Seeing its potential, I placed a low bid which was shockingly accepted. This quality became the basis for rebuilding my business and life. I sat alone in my favorite bar one Saturday afternoon, savoring the serenity. Soon after arriving here, this tavern became my refuge. Seeing its unrealized potential, I bought the neighborhood gas station and repair business at a great deal. When I was ready to sell, it let me leave my past and start over after the only food shop closed at 7 p.m. I built a large retail store facing the gas station to service the population. I repositioned the tank so the pumps could be seen from the store, freeing up many customer parking spaces. The store was busy from 7 p.m. open 24/7 until midnight. The rear lock garage opened at 8 a.m. The bar first objected when we started selling basic alcohol, but over time it brought in a good income and generated local employment. Thanks to a woman I hired, the company turned around the store's internal merchandising and started to get really successful. Due to great demand on Friday and Saturday evenings, it quickly returned the equity loan and needed staff doubling. We sold loads of junk food to bar customers, and on Sundays we sold reasonably priced cold beer. Having just replaced the steering column in an ancient truck, a family legacy, I was drinking a double shot of Jack Daniels with ice water and lemon. It took 8 months to find the part and create some fake fittings. His family had driven this truck since the 1940s. Audience in a few hours. Farmers brought daughters for afterwork entertainment. Over 6.5 years here, I developed a strong reputation and made many friends. The residents kept me informed of anything unexpected and watched out for each other. Every week, always on Saturdays, I visited the bar for a drink before leaving for home. That was my peaceful moment to organize my ideas. I wished I hadn't, since I watched them enter they marred an otherwise flawless day. Sister of my ex-wife. It brought back memories. I wanted nothing to do with evil. I learned you can't see evil. The lad had grown more and more like his biological father. The truth always shows up. Why would they be looking for me now? They spoke with the bartender, showed him a picture, and then left. I was glad of my long messy hair, beard and mustache that set me apart. About half an hour later, the bartender: "Come home, when can you?" "What did they want, Tom?" I asked. "They came to check it out after hearing a rumor you live here and wanted to get in touch." Tom said, "They said a woman named Willa is dying of cancer and wants to make peace." I asked for your picture, pretending not to recognize your name. I reached for a cigarette, tore off the filter, and lit it. "Who are they and what do they want?" "The woman is your ex-wife's twin sister. The young man is her illegitimate experience." "Do you think they were speaking truthfully from their body language?" "I'd say they're partly honest but hiding something big." Tom said. "We nodded. Her sister and my ex-wife had always been dishonest, seeming sincere but actually deceiving me." Tom turned back behind the bar. My mind turned to almost 7 years ago when I left, pledging not to return for another 7 years, thinking me a fool. They laughed at me that day. They learned a severe lesson since. They were upset at their joke, but they didn't realize how badly I was hurt. Insight led me to this moment, and a relative who had seen the terrible twins Willa and Tammy betray me too often called them dark witches. Before I left earlier that week, we found $4 million worth of a new insurance policy on them. "I die, I should run," advised a smart elderly woman. They had no idea my work truck was already loaded with everything I wanted for my 16-year marriage. When I left, I ended up 2 states away after driving off without turning around. Part of this was my own. I was 18 while Willow was 16 and caused her to get pregnant. My family urged me to wed her, and soon we had 2 more children. They found it funny. "Your father will come back when he cools off." A few hours later, a sheriff's car arrived at the house. Willem asked, "Are you Mrs. Willa Reinhardt?" She laughed, thinking it was a joke, but when she said yes, he said, "Ma'am, you've just been served." She opened the envelope and realized I had split our marriage without a second thought. She told me the grand dame was startled. My lawyer included a DNA analysis proving the affair lasted a year. Divorce suit. Inside the mail was a letter disclosing I was suing her spouse for slander, cheating, and child support debt. Their jokes lost appeal to me. My final laugh came from here. Their joke was that I was only good for making money. Everything I touched turned to gold, hence Willa, and the children were spoiled and never needed anything. Later, Willa discovered I had paid off all debt, sold our 2 apartment properties for profit, and canceled all credit cards and changed my name from bank accounts. I stole half our worth in cash, zeroing our monthly cash flow from $10,000. Her sister discovered the expenses of hiring me before they received the subpoena. My counsel froze their assets, leaving them broke after the divorce. My attorney contacted Willa and paid her for a quarter of their losses. She said why would he do that for him, it was never about the money. My attorney said Willa left us legally separated but not divorced when she refused to agree to the divorce without talking to me. I had no need to talk to someone who had misled me over the years. She had to work for the first time and discover that income quickly runs out. Important mail was forwarded by my attorney to a rented FedEx mailbox, then weekly delivery to my work address, knowing that Willa and her sister lick. A matter of whether, but rather when they would finally try to exact revenge on me. Their family didn't think of leaving things as they were, hence my absence would cause disturbance. Their revenge would be worse the more this continued. They refused to let it go lightly. I had assumed I had succeeded in getting away until recently. Given Tammy's look, I understood their game wasn't done. I left the rear door after finishing my drink in case they were monitoring. "Truck, you're a hard man to find, Mr. Arthur Sethra Sim." "No doubt," I replied as I was unlocking the door. "How come you are aware that my name is Peter Edwards? Your oldest daughter Connie is my wife." He said that could be a blessing or a curse. I said if she performs like her mother. "So why are you here?" "I arrived looking for you," he said. Went across town, then along a long driveway toward a farmhouse. I let him make copies and showed him the divorce papers in my home office. I built it for the grand dame, expecting her to leave her old house. Peter didn't realize I didn't live there. Peter was a confident, nice-looking, apparently educated young man. Was he part of Willa and Tammy's conspiracy, or did he claim to be? Records. A copy of the sheriff's report Will asked signed upon serving with the summons caught his attention. He printed a scathing letter from Will's attorney to me noting the agreed-upon property division, but refusing to finalize the divorce without my in-person conference. I watched Peter's reactions and realized he was picking up new knowledge. As he worked, my records ran counter to his impressions. Peter said, "Do you think Connie knows that?" Peter asked, "Who told you that?" "Tammy and Seth told the bartender that today. But I know Willa is fine. She's in a common-law marriage with her former attorney and is expecting his second child." Peter said, "She's the one that asked me to find you to start the divorce. She claims it's necessary so she can remarry Connie." "Did you know your mother lied about the divorce not being final?" Peter asked. "What are you doing?" "Whatever was left before leaving town. If it wasn't for our stepfather we wouldn't have survived. I'm forwarding the legal file to you." Peter said, "Read it and get back to me right away." I took 2 Bud beers, opened them, and placed one in front of him. As they were talking, I asked, "Why didn't you tell my daughter you found me?" "Connie and I have only been married 2 years and just had a son 3 months ago. For now I'm not going to tell anyone." Paradise Police Department. On my laptop, I perused the department's webpage and found he was speaking the truth. It was the accident report from a few months ago that brought me to you. Peter said, "Connie wrote a report on your disappearance which was forwarded to the wanted list, the insurance comp. And he told me of the outcome, your favor once more." I asked, "So why didn't you tell Connie you found me?" "After looking over your file, it became evident something else. The $250,000 cash Willa was supposed to get, and why they're all lying about what happened." As his phone rang, I said, "Yes, sounds like I've been fed lies too." Peter answered, "It's my wife. I'll put it on speaker." He hit down, "Please." "Hi honey." Connie said, "Where did you get all this from?" "Choice, what's really going on?" "It's true. I got the information from your father's lawyer's widow. I had to go out of state to find her. Her husband kept duplicates of all his records from the paperwork. It looks like your mother was served with a divorce petition the same day he left." Peter said, "I wrote a note for Connie to ask her great-grandmother Josie if she still lived." Peter agreed. "Pete, I have to find my father now." Connie said, "At least to finalize the divorce." Connie said, "Ask my sister to watch our son a bit longer. You talk to Aunt Josie about what we found. Maybe she'll open up. This must stay between us for now." Peter continued, "It looks like there may be serious fraud. Why has your mother been denigrating your father for years?" "I'll have to ask the district father's attorney." "Don't tell your sister yet. If the dad looks at this, it's best no one else knows." Rising to fetch us some dishes, I gave Peter privacy until his call ended. Peter asked, "Why do you want Connie to talk to Aunt Josie?" Josie compiled all the details on Willa and George's affair. I said she never married, but watched over the family like a mother raising her only daughter. Being a single mom changed her perspective. She thought Tammy and Will conspired. Why Aunt Josie's granddaughter Jody wants her to move in with her, but Josie insists on waiting until the truth comes out. Jod visits her 2 sons and lives a quiet life. I added that everyone suffers from socializing with Willa and Tammy most of their lives because they've used people. It wasn't until Josie gave me the material that I realized this. Before I left, Peter asked, "Do you want me to ask about your children?" "Not until I know who you claim to." Into the sudden passing of my lawyer. "If she's planning to sue me, what makes her think she can win?" Realizing the kind of people Peter had married, his face went white. We agreed to trust one another enough to trade numbers. He committed himself to keep me updated. I said farewell, shook his hand and accompanied him to the door. I cleaned, locked the flat, and drove the long way home to make sure I wasn't followed so I could reflect once he was gone. Go over it all again. Knowing Willa and Tammy, I had to get ready since they would travel great distances for money. 2 small children grabbed my legs as soon as I came through the door. Like their mother, I grabbed up my 3 and 4-year-olds, the apples of my eye, having all 3 of them in my life. "Bless me, Jody." My wife yelled out that dinner was almost ready, so I went to wash. I shared Jod wanted to flee a broken marriage and find a safe place to start anew. 10 years younger than me. Jod lived on an army base out of state and had no children. Though I knew little about her, I owed Josie and was happy to assist. Without a friend's assistance, it nearly proved impossible to locate, and partially succeeded. A week after quitting her job, closing her bank accounts, and packing her luggage, I picked her up. Her hubby was ready to join the army, silently arriving with a hired U-Haul truck at 8 p.m. Jody and I got to know each other as we headed back late that evening. Her grandma contacted her the next day. We loaded whatever she wanted into the truck with a few friends and neighbors helping us. I escaped her town in under 4 hours without telling where I was from for safety. Josie called Jody's attorney to have all her legal documents sent to my FedEx box, saying, "Grandma, or pick me up. You could have warned me he's a wild bushman who might look half decent if he cleaned up." Jody warned that her soon-to-be ex-husband might cause problems, so I guarded her. Jody took over running my store and proved to be a great manager, implementing wise improvements and prioritizing customer needs. Continuous threats require fire Josie to obtain a restraining order against him discharged dishonorably. He returned to my former hometown believing Jod would be there to deter unwelcome attention. Jod donned a diamond ring to fit her new life. She managed bookkeeping and banking, and as I introduced her, everyone accepted her. Jod was amazing because of her honesty and demeanor. Her long black hair sometimes got in her face. She answered, "I'm sure you'll figure it." On Saturdays she began bringing me lunch since I often missed meals while working and lost weight. Our bond developed organically. Everyone figured we were a couple, and Josie kept us informed about happenings back home. Learning Jody's ex was close with Tammy piqued our interest. Our bond deepened the day Jody's divorce was finalized. We shared our first kiss during a slow dance under low lights at the neighborhood tavern among friends. I soaked my face and theirs with the basin and brush Jod bought for Christmas, and was surprised to find the children laughing with soapy faces. As I finished shaving, Jody entered. "Daddy would look like you with a clean face," Jod said teasingly. "Should I chop his hair too?" Two little children answered enthusiastically yes. Laughing, I responded, "I'll let the barber handle it." "Before you change your mind." The kids sat at the kitchen table watching Jod trim my hair after drying them off and getting them ready for bed. I hardly recognized myself in the mirror. By the time she was done, I told Jod she did well. She cleaned and sent me to shower off the loose hair. Her grandmother called to let her know Connie had just left. Jod felt her grandmother was sorting things out and ready to face the family from annuities. The next week people asked Jod whether she had to threaten me into following conventional wisdom. Jody gently said, "I had promised to bathe at least 3 times a week." While some missed the joke, most got it. People's behavior when they felt better was fascinating. Bird of Paradise told me I will be sued in civil court on back child support, desertion, and ch. Judgment resulted in a collection service looking for me. The mailman laughed as he broke the news as well, using my situation to piece things together. His supervisor and the DA appointed a counsel to represent me. Peter calculated that Willa and Tammy had taken around $48,000 from each of our children. They investigated my old attorney's untimely death and turned it into an open criminal matter. The ex-husband of Jod became of interest, and Will's former attorney, now her common-law husband, could be disbarred. I had to remain undercover as the attorney they recruited for me would be paid by them and help strengthen their case. After a few peaceful weeks, Josie contacted Ed Sunday night to let us know that Monday will see documents filed. She emailed me all she had gathered over 7 years, notarized statements, videotape chats, names of attorneys for a countersuit. Discovered it had been bought 6 months before I left. Certain this was a ruse to lure me back, we spent half the night passing data to the DA. Jod called the suggested lawyers the next morning and selected one, forwarding everything along with a retainer. I would serve Will's team before she received it. As soon as they launched their case, Jod contacted me Friday morning. Josie was on her way with guests, having gone Thursday night and stayed at a motel family, and closed the shop on Saturday, riding with Connie and their son Peter, who Connie didn't know they were seeing Jod. A Ford Explorer and Escape pulled up in the driveway about 7 p.m. for grown-ups came out of the cars. Jod gripped my hand when he sensed my worry. Nobody knew I was there. My truck was tucked away in the garage. Jod said, "Who's that with Josie?" "That's Peter, his wife Connie, holding their baby, and Karen, my second oldest." I said, "Are you all set for this?" "As ready as I shall ever be." Holding our smallest, Jod opened the front door. Each of us came to welcome our visitors. At seeing me, Karen started crying. I held Karen warmly and turned over my boy to his great-grandmother. Connie joined us and turned over her son to Peter. Seeing my daughters together was priceless, as they had become beautiful women. Shaking his hand, I murmured. Jod presented a massive supper following introductions: beef shoulder, mashed potatoes, gravy, scones, York dessert. We started talking about everything. After the kids settled, Peter started first. "Art, is it okay if I call you Dad?" I nodded. Then, "Dad, the dub believes Jody's ex's car was involved in your lawyer's accident. We're doing a paint comparison with the current owner's car. If it matches, he will be charged with manslaughter." Peter said he was seen in the background on video since Willa and her attorneys sealed the DIV divorce papers. They believe their week the fire that destroyed his office the same night. T was handled as arson. Jody looked at me and started crying. I see you weren't overprotective when you moved me here, but I always thought you were. Jody replied, I realized you needed to know who we were dealing with before developing a strategy, even though your questions to my grandmother seemed excessive. Your lawsuit arrived to Willa and Tammy on Thursday. Josie said, we came here fast since we feared. Grandma, we got your house ready. Jod said, it's finished, you only need clothes, most of it I carried in the car. Connie will ship the rest including antiques. I gave her power of attorney to sell the house and furniture. Josie said, we should be leaving paradise. I said, it's time to see if our suspicions are right. I'll drive back with Peter and Connie and rent a truck to haul every test. I have $2 million in accidental pass away insurance. Dad, Connie added, you knew it before you left town. They were planning your death. I smiled broadly and said I had a good idea at the time, but even my lawyer didn't believe me. Jod found images of me from when we first met. Both kids said they wouldn't have identified me. Peter excused himself to make crucial calls, giving my children my wife. Willa will be brought into jail after the holiday. Peter said we can hold her for 48 hours before charging her with 3 counts of theft for stealing annuities from her children. We'll hold down the procedure, so she won't get a bond hearing right away. Peter said, tell anyone who asks that you were here to pack. Peter, are you luring out my cousins, using my children's father as bait? Jod asked, what guarantees me he won't start to suffer? Jody glanced at me and saw my will. She said, damn, you'll do it without hesitation no matter what I think. Jod knew me better than I knew myself. Jody, Art has always been like that. That's why I contacted him to save you from your ex. Art never as wants us free of those witches forever. Jod smiled. My only fear is Art going back into danger. If he were a boxer he would be a world title holder. Josie added, he can outthink them and move quickly on his feet. Neither Willa nor Tammy knows he knows anything. Ladies, relax, I'll be in Peter's hands. I added, remember he'll have to answer Canny, my daughter, if some in town the dub believes he will make his move. Knowing you saved Jod from her horrible marriage will make him enraged. Willow will find you're here from a placed informant in the city jail early Thursday morning. Would he reveal everything to save himself if caught in the act? I asked. Based on his military experience, he has always owned accountability. Upon discovery he follows rather than leads. To city of refuge population 34,848. It confirmed that the city council had declared the laws of the United States didn't apply here. It was like the Wild West with justice. Depending on what the local authorities decided, law-abiding citizens were prosecuted, while illegals were ignored, reflecting a skewed version of progressivism. The working class paid for the sins of others to please those in power who wanted lower wages and cheaper labor. Many changed here in almost 7 years. Aside from the freshly paved Main Street, everything looked the same. I decided my first stop should be my old favorite place, if it still existed. Thankfully Bob and Betty's Burger Bar was still around, but freshly painted. I pulled into the parking lot, got out of the U-Haul truck, and headed for the main entrance at 11:15, just before the weekday lunch crowd. I was counting on being recognized since I was a businessman in seat and picked up my menu. I noticed several people looking at me and using their cell phones. A server brought my coffee and creamer and asked if I was ready to order. Is the Wednesday special meatloaf, baked beans and garlic mashed potatoes still available? I asked how would I find out, and the server said it's not promoted and for regular clients. Tell Jack Art wants fried onions with a meatloaf and brown gravy. I said. The waitress looked at me. I'll tell him personally. Jack turned and stared at me as I passed through the swinging doors into the kitchen, the server following and yelling my order. Jack ran and said, you dumbass, a few weeks early was early. Welcome once more, old friend Susan. Bring Art's coffee over here so we can catch up while he eats. Jack, the original owner's son, never changed the name. We've been friends most of our lives. We chatted until just before rush hour. He asked, Art, you should know the wife formally cut off her friendship with Willa and Tammy after your departure. Jack said she objected to what they said and did about you and the children. A few things will happen. Last night was intended to be an arrest night. If things go according, we set off a row of dominoes. I said, Connie's husband Peter works with me, that's why I came back early. Jack responded, he's a damned good cop and an honest M.A.B. here. Knowing Sasha would see me from behind and not think anything was wrong, we watched her pull into the parking lot. She looked great. I sat down and waited for her to walk in. Jack, what happened? Susan asked. Do parents know you were back? Sasha asked. I answered no, and it's better if we keep it a secret for a few days. Are you here because Willow was taken in? Before it gets better, I'll be under police protection. The police believe my former attorney's death is related to the fire attack on his office. Jack and Sasha's facial expressions were clear-cut. It was well known that the district attorney hired 3 years ago was opening many unresolved cases. Was all done to force me back to the city. The arrest of Willa and my unexpected comeback will throw off a well-thought-out conspiracy behind all of this, is what Jack asked me when we left the restaurant for my rental truck. My sister said, we were talking when we saw Tammy coming up next to us. Where are you residing? My sister murmured, at the Grand Dame's residence. She want I will move her stuff to the new house. Josie left town. Why? Sasha asked. Jod and I have been together for over 5 years. We have 2 boys who recently turned 3 and 4. I said smiling. She wants to be near her granddaughter and our 2 sons. My sister was clearly in shock. How did Jod and you find yourselves together? Death of her lawyer. Do Tammy and Willa know what's happening? Sasha asked. No, but they'll find out when they start moving. I said as Tammy walked up to us that the district attorney will charge Willow within 48 hours. I need you to drop part of your lawsuit against us, but my attorney says we can't because Willa filed a new divorce petition claiming desertion, abandonment, and back child support. Say that with no assets, how will we bail her out? Tammy questioned. Everything is frozen by your court order. Given that you 2 are his children, perhaps your father could assist by pledging his house as collateral. Disappointed, Tammy turned and headed off. Willa and Tammy's father has nothing to do with them, Sasha added. Not since he found out about Seth's true roots. They claim exactly as horrible as their mother. Mr. holding up a cell phone, the officer replied. Looks like those who need to know know. Peter replied. Tammy spoke with me at the burger shop after my long lunch. I turned down her wish for me to release the lien on her sister's assets. We taped Willa and Tammy talking about their plans. Peter said Willa advised Tammy to let Brad press Jody's ex-partner know that you know where Jod is because this would inspire him to do what we need. Our assumption was correct. Brad arrived not an hour later. You were staying, Willa told. I'm here to find Jod so I can pay her a visit. I said before you eliminated me, as we both know you would. How much were you promised from the insurance settlement? From what evidence do you believe I did it? He asked, pulling on the hook. Because you look like someone they might control to do their dirty job. How then did they guarantee you? Or more? They assured me it was just $750,000. Laughing, I said, did you know Seth is really the son of Tammy's first husband? His complexion went white. I said, George and I have been manipulated and used by both twins for years. My attorney sued George and Tammy for everything they had. Brad's face turned white. The divorce was finalized and just needed her signature. I knew Willa's desertion and overdue child support lawsuit was a fraud. She pu everything together. You are only another pawn they moved. Ask yourself, then what are their plans for you? My divorce just slowed down their intended elimination of me. You removing my attorney brought their initial strategy back into action. You could cause them years of setbacks knowing them as we know them. What is your intuition say? Much. Brad stated. It's hard to watch a fool realize he's expendable once he's no longer needed. I'm screwed either way. Life manslaughter gets 5 to 10, but liquidation is life. They can say you acted out a few over Jod and lack knowledge. When I'm dead, were they preparing you to be the scapegoat? Most accidental pass away policies exclude liquidation. What would you do in my place? I asked you. Would hope your cooperation is considered negotiated deal and turn in state's proof that would allow you to retry anyone who tried to kill you. Setting the gun on the table, Brad said. Connie watched her husband on the phone wondering what was wrong. Peter told her that her father was a Joss. A late call on his mobile phone woke them both. She put the kettle on to make hot chocolate for them. When Peter picked up the phone, he was grinning. Your father astonished us all today, he continued. He talked Brad out of it and pushed him to admit everything. Undercover police filmed the entire event. Connie stopped with AMA. Peter continued. I assume your father persuaded Brad that the insurance policy wouldn't pay out for liquidation. That proved to be the deciding element, though I'm not sure if that's accurate. It generated enough uncertainty for Brad to consider the repercussions of a lessened offense rather than life without parole. Aunt Josie always said your dad was a quick thinker, but this was unexpected. Connie added. W. agrees to testify against them in court. They'll both be charged with arson, manslaughter, and at least attempted liquidation of your father. Brad was arrested last night. I said he turned himself into the police, so safeguarding me. I never really felt under any threat. If that were the case, why not give me a call? Jod said. Why did I have to hear about it from Connie? It was almost 2. Willa and Tammy are in custody now. Brad confessed to everything, including his original intention to kill his father when he witnesses in the witch trials. Tammy and Willa face 3 counts of grand larceny, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit liquidation, and Brad he will be charged with arson and homicide. To speed up your divorce, the district attorney is meeting with the saying Arndt and I can at last be married. Jod asked, trying to understand what she had heard along with Dad's original divorce papers. He hopes the judge, being fully informed, will waive Willa's signature requirement, the waiting period, and issue the divorce certificate. Peter said of the papers taken by the DA to the judge. Jody, I replied, I think I should buy you a proper engagement ring today and propose. Everyone murmured at my remark. Jod cried. Had not expected. Before we left, Mom and Dad made us promise to come over for dinner. Jod and I packed until 5:30, and then we headed to my parents' house for dinner. Mom and Dad had a lot of questions. Jody shared how I had saved her from a failed marriage thanks to her grandmother. Then she talked about getting her first job and where it led. We were still enjoying their company when Peter and Connie arrived with my divorce certificate. It was good too. My mom said we should have a wedding before you both get back. That's when my father got Peter's attention, grabbing a glass of fresh beer each. We followed him to the den, because we couldn't get a word in. When word got out that Tammy had been arrested, people started calling with more information. Half of the staff had to help us. Turns out what we knew was just scratching the surface of what Tammy and Willow were up to. And what's going to happen to Will's common-law partner? Curious, I said. How engaged was he in all of this? He will most likely be disbarred, but he will still help raise their kids. Nothing we found connects him to the witches, Peter remarked. Has someone let Aunt Josie know? Connie inquired. Peter said Jodi's dad wears a size 6.5 ring. In case you were wondering. A few minutes later, Peter and we returned to find that they didn't know we had left. I was on the phone with Josie when Karen and her boyfriend showed up. The house was full, so we all moved into the living room. The men had to bring chairs from the kitchen. Mom knew something was up, so she watched the scene with eagle eyes. There was silence as I walked over and knelt down to ask my common-law spouse to marry me. Years of drinking with my son and Jod and Art. Your engagement is the best way to start. Peter had to drive Jod and me back to Joss. A lot of stress and worry were relieved. Friday we went to City Hall to pick up our license. Jod found out she could fit into Connie's wedding dress. Jack agreed to be my best man. Karen became Jodi's maid of honor. The Dar agreed to perform the ceremony. I had to buy a suit at Macy's. Family present. We said our vows to everyone's admiration. Even the twins' father was there. We told everyone we didn't want any gifts, but my former father-in-law handed me an envelope with a smile. Colin said, "This is your early inheritance. It is not a wedding gift. The balance of my fortune will go to your girls." Jodi said, "After all we've gone through, once Grandma gets settled in the new house, our honeymoon will be a week in FL. Would not be where we are today." I slipped the envelope into my suit and forgot about it for the rest of the day. I gave Jod an envelope before we left for home the next day. Inside was a $100,000 bank promissory note with a note saying, "Thank you for helping fix karma. I always felt the twins sold their mother like my granddaughters. I will appreciate seeing them receive the reward they richly deserve." After hugging my girls and parents, Jod and I did, placing the envelope in her pocketbook without telling anyone. Maddie began to cry uncontrollably beside me in the car as I descended the driveway. I had to stop abruptly, my heart racing at the thought of crushing Bizzer's head under my vehicle. He lay on his side, his gaze fixed on me, unwavering and unblinking. It struck me then in a moment of quiet revelation that I had never truly gazed into his eyes. Transforming her surroundings for every holiday and any occasion that called for a touch of festivity. On those special days when I returned home to find the yard adorned with vibrant streamers and jubilant posters proclaiming the celebration, a wave of embarrassment washed over me, mingling with the joy of the occasion. Decoration, her personal paradise of festivity. The garage, once a sanctuary for my car, had become a vibrant tapestry of her decorations, leaving no room for anything else. Though it didn't resonate with me, it was her passion and the joy it brought her. And so it was that the boxes arrived, towering from floor to ceiling, brimming with an array of decorations, most of which whispered the spirit of Christmas with each passing year. Ever more formidable this year, a remarkable scene unfolded featuring a life-size collision involving wise men and a humble donkey. Above the serene scene, a sheep stood sentinel, bathed in the ethereal light of an angel, while the devoted parents gazed lovingly at their newborn Jesus from the rooftop. The jovial laughter of Santa Claus echoed, accompanied by the rhythmic jingle of his sleigh and the spirited dance of 8 reindeer. Season on every tree and bush were ornaments and lights flashing in contrast to those on the leaves, and around the house's windows and over the porch hung a large banner that read "Merry Christmas." It all seemed vulgar and excessive to me, but I realized that first, my opinion didn't matter, and second, it wasn't worth expressing unless I was willing to endure an ice age for the rest of the day and night. As I thought our wonderful children, but the time our house, or rather its decorations, made the front page of the neighborhood newspaper with penny karma each year, she tried to do even better, hoping to repeat the accomplishment, but this year it won't happen, not the way she wanted it to. We will probably be written about. Damage done. The other figures were smashed beyond recognition like Humpty Dumpty. The garlands on the house were torn off and piled on a bonfire started by Santa Claus, and there was probably some roasted vens in there too, because there were no more reindeer. We lived at the end of a long, empty cul-de-sac with only 5 neighbors, at the end of a winding street. Around the curve of the street on a dark night the house shone in all the dazzling splendor Maddie had conjured up. People loved it. How did the jerks who did it find the time to do such utter destruction, and how did they know we wouldn't be home tonight? That's a question I'd be hard to answer. I knew the vandals had plenty of time to practice their destruction when I saw that the ornaments on the trees had been shot. Sometime, although I could tell from the number of balloons on the lawn and the mis-hit marks on the windows that they were using automatic or rapid-fire BB guns, I saw one piece of jewelry they missed. Otherwise the destruction was total. Maddie was kneeling by the crash while I called the police. Why did someone do this to me? I picked her up in my arms and carried her into the house. Our daughters were on a ski trip and we were at my company's Christmas party in the ballroom of the Pierpont Hotel, which was a big event. The police had the same questions I did, considering how long the destruction took and the fact that the hooligans would have had to climb onto our roof to destroy Santa. How could they have guaranteed themselves enough time to do such total destruction? About our plans for the evening, the patrolman asked my wife the same question, but Maddie, still heartbroken, could only shake her head. After canvassing our neighbors, the patrolman's partner returned and reported that a large van had been parked on our street for a long time that evening with a fake catering company magnetic sign. The neighbor who saw it thought we were getting ready for a party and didn't. The cop sympathized with us but felt there was no evidence and he couldn't take any action other than filing a report in case we wanted to claim insurance before he left the front windows lit up with flashes. It turned out that the local press had recorded the damage to our house and Mad's jewelry would grace the papers once again. The evening began so promisingly. Maddie was in a great mood, flirty and sexy as usual for the past. It was like I was married to a porcupine. Any attempt to touch her resulted in a sting. I didn't know what to do, but something had thrown our relationship out of whack. Maddie was only 39, but I thought she might be going through early menopause. I wanted to keep all my body parts intact. I fought the urge to ask her about it, but it was my best guess. Agreed to give her the bedroom. I felt her slipping away but tried to be patient and understanding. This weekend was off to a good start, setting up all those decorations with a new full-size and expensive crash as this year's addition seemed to put Maddie in a great mood. My wife, that happy flirty girl I was once married to, was back as she prepared a party in my company. She even stopped and kissed me and promised more later that evening. After a year of abuse, suddenly my loving wife was back in my arms, loving me, only me. I couldn't understand what had happened. It was like an emotional blow. After a year of crap, I was finally ready to move on, and now this mood swing. Maybe she was on hormone therapy or drugs. Maddie usually emptied the trash cans in the house spinner when I noticed a full basket in the hall bathroom. I grabbed a garbage bag and went through the house emptying the garbage can to save my wife the hassle. When I entered the master bathroom and emptied the trash and found that Maddie was clearly menstruating for the first time in almost 4 months. Week of January, I figured it must be the third 3-month dose. 9 months of birth control, 9 months of her pushing me away, 5 months of her kicking me out of our bedroom, 9 months of patient understanding, 9 months of celibacy until my wife, who had always avoided birth control, suddenly found a need for it. 9 months of pregnancy. How freaking stupid am I? I pounded on the sink in anger and frustration. How could Maddie do this to me? I looked at myself. After I finished with the trash, I sat down at the computer and had questions. No one can have her period during menopause, but I found that menopause is diagnosed when a woman does not have a period for a full 12 months, so she may be skipping months, which is similar to menopause. Called premenopause. Number 2, can birth control be used to regulate or mitigate menopause? Yes, birth control pills can help manage some of the symptoms of menopause and premenopause, but they should not replace hormone replacement therapy HRT. So what's going on? Digging around on the internet, I found some information about perimenopause. After looking up the symptoms, I found many that fit mood changes. Check. She's never had them before. Changes in sexual desire or memory. Not that I noticed she remembered everything I'd ever done wrong. Headaches. I'm not sure about her. Night sweats. Maybe that's why she kicked me out of bed. Maybe hot flashes. Just angry outbursts. Sleep problems. Maybe that's why she kicked me out of the bedroom. I wanted to scream. I just want answers, but the damn questions keep piling up. I decided I'd bear with it a little longer, but now I'd pay attention. My wife has always been a home fairly independent. Her time has been more or less free. Twice a week she would hire a housekeeper, and 2 or 3 times a week we would get takeout since the kids like pizza and Mexican food, and Maddie and I like Indian, Thai, and Chinese. Other days she cooked dinner, except for Saturday we had breakfast on our own and usually made our own lunches, so she had a lot of free time. The biggest and most time-consuming tasks she did by herself were holiday decor. Over the years, it became not only a serious investment of her time but also a serious financial investment. Animatronic puppets of people, animals, or other creatures controlled by an operator either manually or remotely dominated her Halloween displays, and Santa and a sleigh would buzz around for half the night before the timer shut them off. June through July 4th we lived at the secluded end of a long cul-de-sac. No one saw most of her shows except those who were aware and attended. On Halloween or Christmas she had her fans, but on other holidays we didn't need any adjuster to help direct the crowds. But each year more and more decorations were added for each holiday. I don't mean to be vacuous, the point is that I realized how much free time my wife had in the day. Not too often because my job doesn't allow me to leave the office very often, but I went out often enough to realize that Maddie wasn't spending time at home when her porcupine needles would practically fly across the room at me with angry retorts. My random questions felt like an interrogation, and she always had a reason for her absence, usually that she was looking for new jewelry that was too much for me. I thought I could use our vacation fund since Maddie didn't seem to be in the mood for a vacation, but when I talked to a private investigation agency, they told me a stakeout would cost $150 an hour and any additional costs, travel, parking, etc., Since I was leaving Maddie alone for at least 8 hours a day, that worked out to $1,200 a day and $6,000 for the week. Keep up with that. I considered asking a friend or neighbor to watch my wife or me for 60 seconds before scrapping the idea. First, finding a friend you trust who has the time to watch someone is difficult. All my friends who don't work are slackers, great guys, but not the kind of people you'd hire, and I wouldn't trust them with their own wife, let alone mine. Cheater neighbors pretty much fall into the same category. The only one who stays home all day is the old pervert from across the street. The ladies on the block stopped inviting him to barbecues after the boo blonde 4 houses down complained that he literally spit on her when she was in a bikini at a pool party. I've never seen anyone so disgusted. Watch her at all. A week before the Christmas party, Maddie's computer crashed somehow. I knew it was going to be my fault. After all, I bought it for her. But she was very nice to me, asking me to fix it. She was almost loving. When Maddie left for her gym, I agreed to take a look at it. It didn't take long to discover that a rootkit virus had destroyed several Keybot track files, banished the malware from the computer, restored the missing files, and I know Maddie, and I know she doesn't have the patience to type in her name and password every time she wants to access her email, so she opened it right away. The last emails were all I needed to make my heart break, so please don't do this. Read the headline of the most recent email I received from Jimmy Love 69. Me, and now she was leaving her lover Jimmy Love 69. She had someone new in line later. I thought I should have gone back even further and looked through her sent letters to see what she had said to Jal, but I was so depressed that I just shut down the computer. I love my wife wholeheartedly. I had waited a year like a dumb cockled while she had an unknown number of lovers. Was Jimmy the first, the fifth, or the... Hold back the tears. What I could do was start planning my exit. Maddie didn't make it easy for me. I think I must have made my decision to leave clear because suddenly she was a concerned wife again. I ignored the hints of going back to our bedroom, citing an approaching illness. My excuses were the same as hers for being indisposed, but other than a disappointed look, she didn't insist I return to her bed, and God knows at this point I didn't care about again and asked, why did someone do this to me? I sipped my tea and asked carelessly in response, do you think Jimmy did it? The quiet sobbing stopped, and when I looked up, Maddie was looking at me, eyes wide with fear. Do you know about Jimmy? Yes, I do. He sent me an email pouring out his heart about your grand romance. As I sat in quiet reflection, I watched the delicate tendrils of steam dance gracefully from my cup, swirling into the air like wispier. Cherished me deeply. Maddie wiped her nose with her napkin and then began, honey, he was a mistake. I thought it didn't matter. A mistake? You thought you were in love. It doesn't matter. It is what it is, I said sullenly. But he really wasn't in love when he wrote to me about your big affair. And what did you do? Dump him for some other guy? I told him it was over. I told him, so you crushed him, and he wanted to hurt you back. That's what broken-hearted people do. Jimmy did it in a twisty way, thinking he'll get you back. Where are you going, Jimmy? I'm done. Maddie jumped up and grabbed my arm, holding me in place. I shook her off and went to the garage. It's over between us for a year. She fell to her knees. I only went out with Jimmy to get back at you, and then last week I ran into Melinda and she apologized. She said she attacked you, but you pushed her away. She said she was drunk and didn't realize it was you. She was sobbing and couldn't catch her breath. I opened the garage door and started carrying the packed suitcases next to her jewelry boxes into my car. Could have asked me, but I didn't. Your answer was debauchery. Was Jimmy the only one, or was he the 50th? I loaded the suitcases into the trunk. Don't answer that. I don't care. Our marriage is like your Christmas ornaments, destroyed, shredded, destroyed. As an argument for me to stay, she screamed that she loved me. I pulled out of the driveway, wiggling slightly to run over the head I'd moved out of the way as we drove home. Bye-bye bazaar. And $500 for 2 Crossman Street 1 automatic air pistols. 2 PS from the basketball court were happy to destroy the nativity scene in exchange for 2 guns. They used the ladder I left to reach Santa on the roof and stowed it away in the shed. I was worried about the balloons hitting my windows, but my half of the insurance claim was worth the extra damage. I never would have gotten half the value of that junk out of the garage and destroy it too. But that would have been too much. And Jimmy L69, sure, he never wrote me, but I know Maddie, she won't listen to his rebuttal, so he won't be crawling between her legs again. I figured divorcing her might end up with him and her in bed and me paying for it. Maybe I'll pay alimony and she'll have other partners, but not this.